Welcome to Ready to Launch, the series where entrepreneurs and side hustlers share their behind-the-scenes stories about how they got started and how they've managed the transitions in establishing, sustaining, and growing their businesses even in difficult times. In this series, I interview inspiring men and women who are models for anyone who's ready to launch an entrepreneurial initiative or passion project. From their stories, we learn how to be bold and execute on our business and life goals. So you're in the right place if you're ready to dream a bigger dream, have greater impact, and live a more fulfilled life. This is Ready to Launch, and I am your host, Fatimah Williams. Hi, my name is Fatimah Williams. I am your host for the Ready to Launch series, where I interview my favorite entrepreneurs about how they built their businesses from $0 to $100,000 and beyond. I chose these business owners because they are ordinary people like you and me, who you might bump into at the grocery store or at Target, yet have no clue about their level of business influence or success. If these ordinary people turned successful entrepreneurs can do it, then so can you. You may want to build a business because you want to earn extra money outside of your 9-to-5 job, or perhaps you feel capped on your job and you want another way to express your creativity and get paid for it. Or you may be one of those who's charging through and you really are planning to escape your 9-to-5 once and for all. Wherever you are in your entrepreneurship journey, the business owners that are featured in the Ready to Launch interview series will teach you tried and true strategies, mindsets, and habits that you need to achieve your entrepreneurship goals. And I'll just share with you that my personal commitment is to help smart, driven people take control of their earning capacity and make money from what they know or from what they know how to do best. Your employer should not have complete ownership of your time or your capacity to create income and wealth for you and your family. I don't care if you're at the top paid company in your field, you're rocking it at the highest, most prestigious company in your field. You can become obsolete in a day. A company can experience downturns that force them to let you go. Or you know what? And this one I hear a lot as a business coach. One day you may wake up and just decide that there's more for you beyond what your employer and your company can offer. So to kick off this series, I'd like to introduce myself and to tell you more about why I'm on a mission to help creative and driven people monetize their expertise and experience real freedom. I want you to have options in life. And in my experience as an employee turned entrepreneur, options came when I took charge of my future and learned how to make money from what I know and from what I know how to do. So let me explain. Perhaps you know me already or you've Googled around. You may know that I own a professional development training company that serves the top colleges and Ivy League universities in the United States. My clients have included Yale University, Rutgers University, Columbia University, and many others. And as a leader in the higher education space, I've been invited to speak at national and regional conferences such as the Association of American Universities and the Conference of Southern Graduate Schools. And my work has also been featured in top publications in my field, including the Chronicle of Higher Education and Inside Higher Education. I built my company from a blog to a 5-figure speaking business in record time. And we are consistently, even to this day, called upon to offer the latest strategies to help students go from college to high-quality professional careers. I have a doctorate from a top-ranking research university, and I'm so fortunate enough, and I've worked hard enough to win competitive fellowships that totaled over $175,000 that paid for all 7 years of my graduate education. That's right, my master's and my PhD, all paid for. As an African American and as a woman, I'm proud to be among the 10% of people in the U.S. who hold a PhD, and among 2% of African American women to hold a PhD. This accomplishment truly means so much to me and to the communities that I am a part of. I've been blessed to live a beautiful life. I've studied and worked all around the world, in South Africa, in Honduras, Central America, and in Colombia, South America. Not to mention all the places I've traveled for fun and just to learn about new cultures. I've been to Madagascar, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Japan, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and the Netherlands, among other places. And I also learned that to whom much is given, much is required. So after college, I taught English at an all-boys orphanage in a rural town in Honduras. And later, I co-founded an organization called Life Soccer, which donates soccer shoes and equipment to children in some of the most underserved areas in the Colombian Pacific region. So you could say that for all intents and purposes, my life has been amazing. But what you may not know is that I grew up the child of a single parent, raised by my mom, who was an entrepreneur and fashion designer who often struggled to make ends meet for us. In particular, I remember coming home from school one day and wondering why the house was so dark, like why there were no lights on. And as I entered the home, I saw my mom standing over a kerosene-powered heater warming up our dinner. Our electricity had been turned off. And that night, I had to do my homework in the dark by candlelight. I remember going to school the next day and handing in my assignment to my teacher and watching her disappointed face as she collected my subpar assignment. It was not my best work, and she knew it, but she just didn't know why. So as an adult, when I made not one, but two risky career choices in the span of 2 years, I felt like a lot was riding on my decisions. In essence, I had to excel. I had to achieve. And most importantly, I had to be able to provide for myself because I didn't have well-to-do parents who could bail me out of financial trouble. And let me tell you, I went to an amazing undergraduate university, the University of Virginia, and that was my real eye-opener to what wealth and what generational wealth looked like. When I saw my classmates as legacy students where their parents had also attended the university, or just seeing the ways that the parents of many of the students could provide for them. So I was constantly reminded throughout my upbringing and throughout my career as an adult that I really had to make it, not just for myself, but for my family who comes before me and also those who will come after me, like my own children and my own legacy. So after finishing my PhD, and this is it still kind of affects me today to even talk about this, I was awarded a prestigious job offer at a private university in the beautiful sunny green hills of Virginia. This was a coveted position, especially at the time that this was offered to me, because academia, the economy in general had experienced a really sharp downturn in 2008, 2009, and I was offered a position in a time when so many of these positions were literally just being cut. They would be announced one month, and then the next month they would all start being cut from universities because they didn't have enough money. And not only had I made it to being invited to interview, but I'd also made it to get an offer. And somehow deep down inside, I knew that I could not become a professor. And so I turned down this prestigious job offer, but I felt that being a professor would truly not allow me to express my gifts and my talents. I felt that the environment of academia was stifling, and not this particular university, but just academia overall. Like, it takes so long to produce the knowledge and then to share it with the public that the creativity that you have around this truly has to be sustained over such a long time. And it seemed like with such little outcomes and rewards. So instead of continuing with a career as a professor, I opted to work in nonprofit management and policy in the state of New Jersey, where I'd lived for some time at that point. And I'm telling you, I had to build my career from the ground up because none of my academic contacts were relevant in this new world of the nonprofit sector and philanthropy. So I'm proud to say that even a year into my working in this nonprofit, I'm proud that I achieved really big wins for my organization. I raised over $500,000 in additional revenue. So not the revenue that I came in managing, but the additional revenue within less than a year. I spearheaded municipal projects that still continue to the day of this recording that have changed the city landscape and also health outcomes for the children and the families that we served. And truly, on the outside, everything looked great. But what I knew was that my work environment was toxic. I felt like my ideas and my creativity were being capped at every turn. Our organization and its management said that it wanted fresh ideas and smart, driven employees and creative initiatives. But truly, the traditionalism and the politics made it hard to get anything done. I experienced the inner office gossip and politics, and all of my colleagues and I having to pretend that our manager had the best ideas, even when those ideas were outdated and stale. I even saw my colleagues' contributions overlooked and undervalued. And it just felt like I was in a consistent place of having to pretend that our organization was doing groundbreaking work, when in fact, for the most part, we were just doing enough to get by. And for me, truly, like, that just didn't match with my values. Going to work sometimes felt like soul death, and I truly don't use that term loosely. I knew that I had to make a change when one day I ended up in the emergency room thinking that I had appendicitis, but several hours and rounds of tests later, I learned that it was an ulcer. How does an avid runner and a healthy eater end up with an ulcer? And I'll tell you how: stress. I don't do well at pretending, and this job was literally eating me alive. So eventually, I exited the organization shortly after that and started consulting for companies like the March of Dimes and the local school system and other organizations. I loved that I could literally create money on demand. Now, of course, I had to network to share about my services, but it was fascinating to me that I could close $5,000 and $10,000 contracts by meeting people who had a need and then showing them how I could solve that need. In this time, I really gained a sense of power and freedom from this work, and I even started to blog about it. Still, there was something nudging at me. I felt like I, quote unquote, should have a fancy job. After all, I had a PhD, and was I really going to do this entrepreneurship thing full time? I kept remembering the financially tough times that I experienced as a child growing up with an entrepreneur mom, and I just knew that I could never go back there again, ever. So I decided to apply for positions in my new field of policy and advocacy. On a bright fall afternoon, I walked into the beautiful offices of a leading national philanthropy for an interview that had been extended to me at this organization. As I walked in, the warmth and the sunlight flooded the atrium as the floor to ceiling glass walls just let all that sunlight pour in. The modern decor, the communal working pods, and the occasional flat screen TVs that announced the chef-prepared lunch of the day and the trainer-led exercise classes of the day were all truly mesmerizing to me. This was the quality of organization I should be working for. A prestigious organization with smart colleagues, great perks, a $95,000 beginning salary, and an automatic 4 weeks of vacation. Now that sounded like where I truly belonged. And as the interview day went on, my fantasy of safety and security quickly came to a halt. I had many interviews throughout the day with different people who would have been my colleagues. And so there'd be like a group of 2 or 3 who would interview me, and then another group who'd take me to lunch. And then as the day started to wind down, I made it to one of the vice president's offices. And I have to say that throughout the day, I just kept feeling like I just didn't fit. It wasn't that I couldn't do the work. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. It wasn't that. It was just, I just felt like I didn't fit. Some of the people just felt superficial to me. And then the ones who really felt like they were doing great work and enjoyed it and felt like real people that you could just talk to and create with and have a good working relationship with, they just felt few and far between. Everyone just seems so guarded to me. And I guess, because the organization is so prestigious, they just feel like they just, I don't know, secretive or just really protective over their organization. But it was just hard to get a read on the people. And honestly, I'll take responsibility as well. I just couldn't really get into some of the work. Like, I just didn't find a lot of it super interesting, at least not in the ways that they were talking about it, and that they expected me through this position to interact with it. For me, I was more excited about like the growth aspects and kind of creating the systems that would put this work on the map. But the actual like evaluation of the work and doing the day-to-day of the kinds of things that this position had were just not as interesting to me. The overall systems and management of it, that for me was a bit more interesting. So I'm going into this office with the VP and still kind of feeling like I'm not sure if I fit here, but I interview pretty well. I do that really well. And so I went in with a fresh face and just kind of fresh energy to speak to this VP. And so I'm sitting across from him at his desk, and I'm staring at all these papers, like overcrowding his desk, piled high on his desk. And he's asking me a series of questions, and I'm really getting into it because I'm able to talk about some of the projects that I've done in the nonprofit work that I've done. And so I could tell him like how we built, community support, the ways that I approached building the advocacy and how I brought in other partners. And so I was really like in my zone. And at one point he interrupted me and said, he said, "Do you have a background in business or in analytics?" And then he kind of like scrunched his forehead and he grabbed the hard copy of my resume from his desk and he looks at it front and back and kind of does another quick look. And he says, "You're really sharp, but this is a program manager position, right?" And my heart kind of sunk because basically he was telling me that I was getting ahead of myself, that my drive and my experience did not match the level of the position. And I truly think he was also saying that the energy that I was bringing, like I was a little bit too engaged. He was impressed by me. I could tell that, but I could also tell that I made him nervous. They were looking for something else. They weren't looking for a team lead. And I couldn't hide my leadership abilities no matter how hard I tried. And so it was at that point in the interview that I just knew that I had to channel my drive and creativity to create my own opportunities. And I'll say I mourned it. When I got out of that interview and I got into my car, I felt awful. Like I wanted to conform. I wanted to be able to fit because this looked like safety and security to me. It looked like consistency to me. And at the time, entrepreneurship just looked like what I saw my mom and I experience, highs and then lows and highs and then lows. And I just knew that I wanted something different for myself. But you know what? When I looked at how sitting across from that VP and his confusion about me, his excitement, but then also his idea that, perhaps she just doesn't fit here. There's something that is not congruent with what we're looking for. It was in that moment that I realized that I didn't need to wait for a fancy organization to approve of me. I didn't need a prestigious company in order to make the $95,000 a year. That truly I could do that for myself if I got clear about my business goals and if I stayed focused. And also I saw that if I waited for a company to approve of me, aka hire me or decide to promote me, that I would have gone months without earning a living. And that is why I am committed to helping smart, driven people to create income on demand, employer optional. What do I mean by that? I mean by that everyone should have everyone already has the ability to earn money and earn an income. We just tend to be accustomed to doing that with a single employer. And truly, there's going to be times in your life where either you want extra money just because there's something fun you want to do, or something you want to invest in, or something you want to give to, an organization perhaps you want to give to, or a family member that you want to help. And you want to be able to create a little extra money for yourself so that you're not digging into your normal income that you get from your employer. Or you decide that you want to be able to do this consistently for yourself and become your own employer. So what I'm committed to is helping people with the drive to take their own abilities and skills to actually be able to create income on demand from their skills. And I say employer optional because I believe that you can do this within a company as well as outside of a company, in a side hustle or as a full-time entrepreneur. It's my real and true belief that no one should feel like their growth or their creativity is dependent upon their job. Your income should not be capped by what your employer says that you're worth. And so it's time for us to own our skills and make money from what we know how to do and be able to do this on our own terms. So when I got a little nervous, I thought back to the organizations that had already hired me. So the universities that hired me to come in and train their students or their employees, as well as the companies that had hired me, like the March of Dimes and that school system that I talked about earlier, who'd hired me to consult for them. I knew that if I could do that, then I could do more. And so it felt empowered in that moment, by my own ability to create a life and a career on my own terms using the gifts and skills that I already have. And so that's why I've created this series, Ready to Launch. And that's also how I coach my clients. I want to help you see the value in your expertise and then turn that expertise into clients and into profits. So whether you decide to be a part-time or full-time entrepreneur, you deserve to experience the freedom and the impact that comes from offering your special gift to the world. It's time to get free, it's time to get paid, and it is time to get ready to launch. Thank you for joining Ready to Launch with me, Fatimah Williams, and our inspiring guests. I'm committed to helping you turn this inspirational information into actionable advice. So I created the Ready to Launch syllabus. To get the most out of your listening time, go to fatimahwilliams.com/launch and download my free Ready to Launch syllabus today. And as always, I'd love to hear your comments and takeaways from this session. What are you ready to launch, and what's your next step? Join the conversation on Facebook or follow me on Instagram at Fatimah PhD. Let's get ready to launch.